But, and that's probably the biggest reason that the churches got the attitude that they do.
Mm-hmm.
However, if they would really fall back to the foundation of their teachings, they were here for the betterment of humanity, or that was their mission, I would hope, to further people's relationship with God. They should have handled their problems.
Right. Well,
they didn't, and it's costing them. And I'm sure that, and those numbers were just primarily reflecting the United States. Correct?
Oh, yeah, that's just the United States, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at these other countries. Ireland has got big stuff going. Germany's got big stuff going. And those are just the ones that we're hearing about. It's not just them.
Now, let me ask you this, Michael. Now, you mentioned earlier about the Catholic Church in third world countries, correct? And how a lot of those countries where they tend to cover up abuse scandals. So, do you feel that that you will be hearing more? Well, we as the public will be hearing more about these in the near future, or?
I'll tell you what, I think you'll be very hard pressed to hear anything about it. I bet you don't hear hardly anything out of it. The only way that you'll hear something out of it is if someone that is famous or has a whole lot of money gets wrapped up in a sex abuse case in one of those third world countries with the church. That'll be the only way you hear anything about it. Because, for example, and the reason I say that, look at some parts of South America, Brazil, Mexico. You get south, you get into Mexico and on further south into South America, down around the Congo. You're talking, it may not be a third world country, but it's pretty poor and it's pretty remote, it's pretty rural, and they are still old school. Severely old school. Where if this stuff goes on, ain't nobody gonna say anything about it.
Right.
And, in some of those countries, depending upon which part of South America you get into, well, guess what? You wouldn't report it to the police, because the police would probably look at you like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Or, even depending on the region, there may not be a police for the region. There may not be anybody to report it to.
Well, do you think that also that, especially in Latin countries where Catholicism is like ingrained into their culture, do you believe that there's a certain level of reverence for people in positions of power to where they wouldn't want to believe that, or they wouldn't accept that, or it's unheard of to even question people in that upper echelon in the Catholic Church?
That's the way it used to be here in, say, the 1950s and 60s. Kind of the way it used to be here, isn't it?
Yeah.
That still prevails down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. You're exactly right, because that same attitude like we used to carry up here 50, 60 years ago, that same attitude is, that's the priest. You don't question the priest. You don't question the Catholic Church. You just keep your mouth shut. You do what they tell you.
And when you think of the entire institution of the Catholic Church, it's an intimidating. I mean, you see how big and how I can't even place words on it. It's just a monumental, just entity, and it's just like you feel like you're just this small speck in a whole spectrum of things, and it's just like where you feel like you can't really speak out against them because they're so powerful. And
it's very hard to take on a world power.
Yeah.
It's a unique little thing, because the Vatican is its own country legally. So here's this little speck in Italy that is its own sovereign country with its own laws and its own figurehead that runs its own way. But that little bitty country has roots in every single part of the entire world.
Wow.
That's a big organization, and that's a lot of money.
Wow. And not to mention, you're talking about, like you said, a quote-unquote organization that's had roots, which had, it's pretty much had roots around the world globally. That's pretty much had a global impact for centuries. And then you feel like, wow, can I even take this on? Who can I even go to? Especially if you're really wrapped up into the whole, I don't want to call it a cult, but if you're really wrapped up into the whole, Catholicism thing, you feel like that there's no one on the outside that can really help you.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I can see why a lot of people will go years or will never come out and tell that they've been abused.
Yeah. And, just by the definition, let alone of a cult. Cult seems to have a negative connotation that we associate with it. But, one of the many definitions of a cult is followers of an exclusive system of religious beliefs and practices. And I'm reading here from Google's, I define cult and done Google search. And one of the first things there says followers of an exclusive system of religious beliefs and practices, or a religion or sect that is generally considered to be unorthodox, extremist, or false, such as satanic cult. That's another thing that people refer to. But by the actual some of the more clinical definitions, it is a cult. Mm-hmm. Any religion could be. But even the more you look at it, the more you start to realize, wow, this is big business.
Yeah.
And not to mention, Sunday morning offerings in church, a portion of those are going to go back to Rome.
Yeah.
Now, every Sunday morning all across the entire world, given in third world countries, it may not be a lot of money, but they still believe in tithing.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be much money, but look at just the perspective of Rome. Say Sunday, you got a big chunk of money coming into you.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we were talking about, I want to touch back on this again, when we were talking about, as far as, we're not even talking about other, ramifications of this scandal, but when you just look at the financial aspect of it alone, even just in the United States alone, you see how much they've been shoveling out to settle these civil cases. And you look at the billions of dollars that have been, pretty much lost because the actions of, of these bishops and all that. Globally, what do you think is going to be the impact if this doesn't get resolved? Like especially if more people keep, coming out or coming forward with, these allegations. Globally, what do you see for the future of the Catholic Church financially?
Well, if we look at the Catholic Church, let's compare the institution of the Roman Catholic Church as a human body. If you have a small bleeding spot in the human body, we all know if you lose enough blood, you will die. Well, in this figurative representation that I'm using, the blood is money. Because we realize, and I don't care what your particular standpoint is, most things in this world turns around by money.